There was no warning, no sirens, no countdown, no sign in the sky that anything was wrong. Just before sunrise, on a quiet morning in June 1908, the forests of central Siberia lay completely still. The air was cold. The ground was frozen hard beneath centuries-old trees. Hunters slept in wooden huts. Reindeer moved slowly through the mist. Nothing suggested that the sky itself was about to break open. Then the light came. Witnesses would later struggle to describe it. Some said the sky split in half. Others said the sun appeared twice, brighter than anything they had ever seen. A blue-white fire raced across the heavens, so intense that people hundreds of miles away shielded their eyes, convinced the world was ending. Moments later, the sound arrived. A roar, deep and violent, tore through the air. It did not roll like thunder. It slammed. Windows shattered in villages far from the blast. People were thrown from chairs, knocked off their feet, hurled into walls. Horses collapsed. Reindeer stampeded. Entire forests bent and screamed, as if struck by an invisible hammer. Then came the heat. Those closest to the epicenter felt their skin burn instantly. Clothes ignited. Trees caught fire without flames touching them. A wave of scorching air raced outward, flattening everything in its path. In seconds, more than 80 million trees were snapped like matchsticks, laid out in a massive radial pattern, all pointing away from a single unseen point in the sky. And then, silence. No crater, no debris raining down, no object to blame. Just a flattened wilderness stretching farther than the eye could see. In the nearest settlements, people staggered outside, convinced the gods were angry or that the sun had fallen. Some believed a second son had been born and immediately died. Others thought the world was ending, that fire had come from above to wipe humanity away. Far away in Europe, the night sky behaved strangely. For days, people could read newspapers at midnight without lamps. The heavens glowed in eerie silver, as if Earth itself had been placed under a ghostly dome of light. Scientists noticed disturbances in the atmosphere, but had no idea what caused them. And yet, the place where it happened remained untouched by investigators. There were no cameras, no recordings, no official measurements. The explosion occurred in one of the most remote regions on Earth. Roads did not exist. Communication was slow. Governments were distracted. Years would pass before anyone tried to understand what had happened. By then, the forest had already begun to hide the evidence. When scientists finally reached the area, they found something deeply unsettling. There was no impact crater, no massive chunk of rock, no clear scar in the earth. Instead, trees lay flattened outward for miles, but at the very center, some still stood upright, stripped of branches, burned, but not knocked down. It was as if something had exploded in the air, something enormous, something powerful beyond imagination, something that left no body behind. Survivors told stories that scientists struggled to accept. They spoke of fireballs moving silently across the sky, of shockwaves that came long after the light, of animals falling dead without wounds, of heat so intense it felt like standing inside an open furnace. The force of the explosion was later estimated to be greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, and yet no radiation was detected, no chemical residue, nothing that neatly fit into human understanding. So theories multiplied. A massive meteor that exploded before impact, a comet made of ice and dust, vaporized instantly, an unknown celestial object, a natural phenomenon never seen before. And then there were the whispers. What if it wasn't natural at all? Some speculated about secret weapons. Others spoke of lost technologies. Still others suggested forces beyond Earth, beyond science, beyond explanation. These ideas were dismissed publicly, but they never truly disappeared, because one fact refused to go away. If the Tunguska explosion had occurred just a few hours later, it would have happened over a populated area. A major city could have vanished in seconds. Millions could have died without ever knowing why. Humanity escaped catastrophe not through preparation or intelligence, but through luck, and luck is not a strategy. The sky had exploded once, without warning, without explanation, and the silence that followed was not comforting. It was a reminder. Whatever struck Tunguska did not announce itself. It did not leave answers behind, and it did not promise it would never return. Somewhere above the earth, the same forces still move, silent, invisible, patient, and humanity continues to look up, not knowing what might be falling toward it next. Long after the explosion faded from memory, the land itself seemed to remember. The forests around Tunguska did not heal the way forests normally do. New trees grew quickly, unnaturally fast, as if the ground had been shocked awake. Animals avoided certain areas entirely. Hunters spoke of places where compasses spun uselessly, where the air felt heavy, where silence pressed against the ears. When scientists returned again and again, decade after decade, they found questions multiplying instead of answers. No fragments large enough to confirm a meteor. No chemical traces that clearly pointed to a comet. No crater where one should have existed. Instead, there was a pattern. Trees flattened outward in a perfect circle, as if something had detonated above the earth, releasing its energy in mid-air. At the very center, trunks stood upright like burned pillars, stripped bare, scorched, but not pushed over. Physics struggled to explain it cleanly. Eyewitness accounts only deepened the mystery. A farmer named Semyon Semenov described being lifted into the air by the shockwave, thrown backward as heat seared his skin. Another witness claimed the sky opened, releasing fire and wind together. Others spoke of a thunderous sound that seemed to come from inside their own heads, not from the distance. Animals died miles away with no visible injuries. Reindeer collapsed mid-run. Birds fell from the sky. The blast wave circled the globe, detected by pressure sensors thousands of miles from Siberia, instruments that did not even exist yet when the explosion occurred. The Earth had shuddered, quietly, globally, and yet history barely noticed. There were no headlines, no urgent investigations, no worldwide panic. Humanity was too busy with wars, borders, and politics to look upward for long. Tunguska became a footnote, a curiosity, something strange that happened far away to people no one would ever meet. That may have been the most dangerous part, because Tunguska was not just a mystery, it was a warning. Modern calculations later revealed something terrifying. The object that exploded above Tunguska had entered Earth's atmosphere at extreme speed, faster than a rifle bullet, carrying energy stored across millions of years of cosmic travel. When it encountered the dense air, it could not survive the pressure. It detonated violently, releasing its energy all at once. An airburst, invisible, craterless, devastating. If the same event happened today over a major city, the results would be catastrophic. Skyscrapers would collapse outward, glass would turn into airborne knives, Power grids would fail instantly. Fires would erupt everywhere at once. Emergency systems would be overwhelmed before the first call was answered, and there would be no warning. Objects capable of causing Tunguska-level destruction are still out there. Many are too small to be easily tracked, too dark to see until they are close, too fast to stop once they are detected. The sky has not become safer. Humanity has only become more fragile. Satellites now watch the heavens, scanning for threats. But even today, smaller objects slip past unnoticed. In 2013, a much smaller meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, injuring over 1,000 people, and that one was not even detected beforehand. Tunguska was many times more powerful, which raises an uncomfortable thought. How many times has something like Tunguska happened before? Before records, before writing, before memory itself. Ancient myths speak of fire falling from the sky, of gods striking the earth, of cities erased in moments. Perhaps some of those stories were not metaphors at all, but echoes of real events, airbursts like Tunguska, witnessed by people who had no language for what they were seeing. And perhaps Tunguska itself was meant to be forgotten, because forgetting is easier than facing how small and exposed humanity truly is. In the end, Tunguska left no monument, no ruins, no mass graves, just a scar hidden beneath regrown forest, visible only from above, like a secret pressed into the earth's skin. A reminder that the most dangerous disasters do not always leave bodies behind. Sometimes they leave questions, and those questions still hang over us, unanswered. The sky did not explode because humanity did something wrong. It did not choose its target. It did not announce its arrival. It simply passed by and missed by chance. The same forces still travel through space tonight. Silent fragments moving faster than sound, older than Earth itself, indifferent to cities, borders, and lives. Somewhere above the planet, something is always coming. And when it arrives, there may be no crater to study, no fragments to analyze, no explanation that satisfies, only flattened ground, broken lives, and a familiar silence, the kind that follows when the sky decides to remind humanity how fragile it truly is. For a long time, that silence was mistaken for safety. After Tunguska, decades passed without another explosion of the same scale over land. Humanity looked forward, not upward. Cities grew taller, glass replaced stone. Electricity spread like veins through the modern world. The sky became something beautiful again, a place of stars, not threats. But the danger never left. Scientists eventually began to understand that Earth moves through a crowded neighborhood. Space is not empty. It is filled with debris left over from the formation of the solar system. Rocks, ice, fragments of ancient collisions, all traveling at unimaginable speeds. Most burn harmlessly in the atmosphere. Some do not. Tunguska proved that you do not need an impact to destroy a city. You only need proximity. When models were run, when simulations replaced guesswork, the results were chilling. A Tunguska-scale airburst over New York would flatten much of Manhattan in seconds. Over London, Tokyo, Los Angeles, the outcome would be the same. Millions of lives altered instantly, not by war, not by human error, but by cosmic chance. And there would be no villain to blame. This is what makes Tunguska so unsettling. It had no motive, no message, no meaning. It was randomness, given force. That randomness unsettled the scientists, who studied the event more than any theory ever could. Nature, it seemed, did not need permission to rewrite history. It did not need to be understood. It only needed time. When investigators walked through the Tunguska forest years later, they described an eerie feeling, not fear, but exposure, as if the land itself was reminding them that civilization is thin, temporary, and irrelevant to the forces that shape the universe. Some trees grew with twisted rings, scars locked inside their wood like memories. Others showed signs of radiation-like effects, though no radiation could be measured. The forest carried a contradiction: damage without a cause, destruction without residue. Even today, no single explanation satisfies everyone. Meteor, comet, fragment of something larger. Each theory explains part of the story, but never all of it. And so, Tunguska remains suspended between science and mystery, not because humanity refuses to understand, but because understanding has limits, and those limits are dangerous. Because when people believe something cannot happen, they stop preparing for it. In the early 20th century, Tunguska was dismissed as a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly. In the 21st century, it has become a statistical certainty, given enough time. Not if, but when. Modern tracking systems now watch the skies, cataloging near-Earth objects, calculating probabilities, updating risk assessments. The numbers look reassuring at first glance. Most large objects are tracked. Most dangerous paths are known. But Tunguska did not announce itself as dangerous until it was already here. Small to medium-sized objects are still difficult to detect. They approach from directions that blind telescopes. They move too fast. They appear too late. The sky still has blind spots, and humanity still lives beneath them. Perhaps the most disturbing realization is this: Tunguska did not change the world because it did not strike where people lived. History remembers disasters by their victims. Without bodies, without ruins, without photographs, even the most powerful explosion on Earth can fade into obscurity. Millions of trees died, animals burned, a landscape was rewritten, and yet most of the world never noticed. That is why Tunguska belongs to history's quiet disasters, events that should have reshaped how humanity sees itself, but instead slipped through the cracks of memory. It exposed a truth few are comfortable with. Civilization is not protected. It is tolerated by geology, by climate, by the sky. When that tolerance ends, it does so without negotiation. Tonight, somewhere far above the Earth, fragments older than life itself continue their silent journeys. They do not care about borders or calendars. They do not know what cities are. They do not aim. They simply move. Tunguska was not a message carved in fire. It was a glimpse, a brief moment when the universe brushed past humanity and reminded it of its place, small, temporary, exposed. And the most unsettling part is not what happened in 1908. It is the knowledge that the sky has not changed since then. Only we have. More people, more cities, more glass and steel, waiting beneath an indifferent universe. The next explosion may not leave a mystery behind. It may leave a name.